delegates to the world's Parliament of Religions, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the afternoon session of the opening day today, the 11th of September, 1893. We now introduce you to Swami Vivekananda from India and request him to address us. Swami Vivekananda.
Sisters and brothers of America, it fills my heart with joy unspeakable to rise in response to the warm and cordial welcome which you have given us. I thank you in the name of the most ancient order of monks in the world. I thank you in the name of the Mother of Religions. And I thank you in the name of the millions and millions of Hindu people of all classes and sects. My thanks also to some of the speakers on this platform who, referring to the delegates from the Orient, have told you that these men from far-off nations may well claim the honor of bearing to different lands the idea of toleration. I am proud to belong to a religion which has taught the world both tolerance and universal acceptance. We believe not only in universal toleration, but we accept all religions as true. I am proud to belong to a nation which has sheltered the persecuted and the refugees of all religions and all nations of the earth. I am proud to tell you that we have gathered in our bosom the purest remnant of the Israelites who came to southern India and took refuge with us in the very year in which their holy temple was shattered to pieces by Roman tyranny. I am proud to belong to the religion which has sheltered and is still fostering the remnant of the grand Zoroastrian nation. I will quote to you, brethren, a few lines from a hymn which I remember to have repeated from my earliest boyhood, which is every day repeated by millions of human beings. As the different streams, having their sources in different places, all mingle their water in the sea, so, O Lord, the different paths which men take through different tendencies, various though they appear, crooked or straight, all lead to Thee. The present convention, which is one of the most august assemblies ever held, is in itself a vindication, a declaration to the world of the wonderful doctrine preached in the Gita. Whosoever comes to me, through whatsoever form, I reach him. All men are struggling through paths which in the end lead to me. Sectarianism, bigotry, and its horrible descendant, fanaticism, have long possessed this beautiful earth. They have filled the earth with violence, drenched it often and often with human blood, destroyed civilization, and sent whole nations to despair. Had it not been for these horrible demons, human society would be far more advanced than it is now. But their time is come, and I fervently hope that the bell that tolled this morning in honor of this convention may be the death knell of all fanaticism, of all persecutions with the sword or with the pen, and of all uncharitable feelings between persons wending their way to the same goal.
Namaskar, I Prabir Kumar Rai, member of Adhivakta Parishad, welcome you all to this webinar. As we know, this webinar is being organized by Adhivakta Parishad Odisha Prant to commemorate the 159th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda in the name of Sradheya Baburao Paldhikar Memorial Lectures, and this is second such lectures we have organized it very recently. The subject that has been decided today, the topic we have decided that to know India is to know Swami Vivekananda, a constitutional pilgrimage. The what we have heard just now, the enthralling voice, the thunderous voice of Swami Vivekananda, we are lucky enough to hear it today. The idea of the people in the West during British era that the Indian people are illiterate, their society is filled with superstition, and their ideas are very dogmatic. All these things, ideas were shattered with this thunderous voice of Swami Vivekananda. It gave us a new identity to the Indian society, to the Indian nation, our culture, our Sanatan Dharma. So, therefore, we have selected a very beautiful subject topic, and our eminent speakers are present today. They will make us understand many things about Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, and his contribution to our society, our constitution, everything. So, before going to that aspect, I am here. I shall welcome to our honorable guests, and let me first welcome Honorable Shri Justice Aditya Kumar Mohapatra, Judge of High Court of Odisha, and I welcome you, sir, for giving your kind consent to deliver your speech on this occasion. I also welcome Sri Sibo Sankar Mishra, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court of India, and I also welcome to Kambupani Padhi, our President of Akhila Bharatiya Adhivakta Parishad of Odisha Prant, and a Zonal Secretary of Akhila Bharatiya Adhivakta Parishad. I also welcome the other members of Adhivakta Parishad of Odisha Prant who are here in this webinar. Now, may I, before requesting our honorable chief guest and keynote speaker, Honorable Justice Aditya Kumar Mohapatra, I would like to say that the subject that has been selected by us in this program, that will be very interesting one, and we will learn many things from the topic selected. So we have already heard the voice, the address, which mesmerized the delegates of that World Parliament of Religion. To that voice, that the words that enthralled the gathering of the delegates there, the sisters and brothers of America, that the universal brotherhood concept that is there in our Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam concept that we are, which speaks a lot about us. So that was the concept that mesmerized the entire world, and how it has helped our society and our nation, and everything that we shall hear from our honorable guests and moderator. So now, may I request Sri Shiv Shankar Mishra, Advocate on Record, Supreme Court of India, who is the moderator of this webinar, to speak something.
Sadar Pranam to all elders, lot of love and affection to all young brothers and sisters. My dear friend, Honorable Justice Aditya Kumar Mohapatra, the keynote speaker of the evening, Shri Kambupani Babu, the state president of Adhivakta Parishad, Orissa, PK Rai Babu, all the members of Adhivakta Parishad, and the participant in the webinar today evening. On the eve of the commemoration of 159th anniversary of Vivekananda ji, the Parishad has organized Baburao ji Paldhikar Memorial Lecture Series. It is a great welcoming effort made by Orissa Adhivakta Parishad. I earnestly and wholeheartedly congratulate the member of Adhivakta Parishad Orissa for having the intellectual endeavor made by them, and in this difficult time faced by the humanity because of the prevailing pandemic time. I am really proud and privileged for having got the opportunity to be part of this webinar as a moderator on the topic "To know India is to know Swami Vivekananda, a constitutional pilgrimage." Today's topic, although is a unique one, but it is very popular and dear to all the students of law having spiritual inclination. Swami Vivekananda, in his Vedantic philosophy, has said, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling the nature externally and internally. A 19th century spiritual leader, Sri Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda, has never participated in the narrow sense of politics, but has a immense contribution to the political freedom of this country. He has been a huge influencer by his ideological and philosophical teaching. He has strongly influenced the socio-political life of India. He has left the imprint in all aspects of the social and national life, including the nationalism, secularism, education, women empowerment, etc. All his philosophical ideas and teachings subsequently we will find in the Constitution. While pondering over the various provisions of the Constitution, the member of Constitutional Assembly had definitely taken the clue of the idea of India that is portrayed by Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda ji. That's the reason the vivid, vibrant, and diverse philosophical idea of Swamiji could not only be found in the preamble of the Constitution of India, but also find in the fundamental right chapter, as well as the directive principle of state policy chapter. In the contemporary and prevailing time, we all are often ourselves debating, sensitizing, and protesting about our fundamental rights. But unfortunately, blissfully, we ignore and forget our fundamental duties, which is vital to the Constitution of India. If the fundamental duties are not made imperative, not given unfettered legal baking, no welfare state can be built. The advisory nature of directive principle of state policy, that is the fundamental duties, will not serve the desired purpose. That was the idea of Swamiji. In the recent days, the unwanted controversy of hijab has given a blow to our secular credential of our country, and it has damaged our national ethos across the world. Recently, I was watching a program in Al Jazeera. The channel was telecasting a program that is Inside Story. There, the channel was trying to portray as if India is against a particular community, and as if we are pretending to be secular. These kind of sporadic incident against the constitutional principle have all potential and threat to the basic philosophy and teaching of Swamiji. The world should know that we are a country with a credo of Sarvadharma Shambhava. That is the idea of secularism inculcated in us by the Vedantic philosophy of Swamiji. In my humble view, unless we have uniform civil code enacted and implemented, we perhaps cannot avoid this kind of incident, and we can retain our secular credential. The irony is, even after 70 years of the adoption of the constitution, the dictate and mandate of Article 44 of the Constitution of India, which is a part of a directive principle of state policy, has not yet been implemented or given even a thought to for a longer time. The Article 44 mandates that states shall endeavor to secure uniform civil code for all citizens throughout the territory of India. The preaching of Swamiji regarding the attainment of the common good for all could only be achieved through bringing a uniform civil code in this country. We have to ponder in the journey as a constitutional pilgrimage whether this is the high time where we have to give a serious thought as to whether uniform civil code is essential to maintain the harmony in this country and to maintain the constitutional ethos, particularly the secularism, the concept of secularism in this country. On the historic eve of 128th anniversary of the Chicago speech of Swamiji, the present Chief Justice of India, Honorable Justice Ramana, has aptly said, I quote, he was prophetic long before the painful churning that took place in the subcontinent during the freedom struggle, resulting in framing of an egalitarian constitution of India. He advocated secularism as if he foresaw the event that will unfold. He firmly believed that essence of religion was common good and tolerance to fulfill the dream of making resurgent India through the principle of common good and tolerance. We should instill the idea of Swamiji in today's youth. That's perhaps the need of the hour. Our youth is our future. Let's try and instill the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda ji in them and dream for the better nation, so that we can avoid the incidents which are happening and creating unrest in the civil society, which recently we have experienced. Politically or otherwise, also, we have to evolve. We have to work for bringing uniform civil code for common good, as preached and propagated by Swamiji. Our keynote speaker, Justice Mohapatra, will enlighten us on this subject. I welcome him on my behalf, on behalf of the Orissa Adhivakta Parishad, to enlighten us on the subject. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your beautiful speech, explaining various sections, articles of Constitution, referring to the various ideas of Swami Vivekananda. Now, may I request Honorable Sri Justice Aditya Kumar Mohapatra, the chief guest and keynote speaker of this webinar, to speak on this occasion.
Pranam, a very good evening, Subha Sandhya, my dear brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must express my gratitude to Adhivakta Parishad Odisha for considering me worthy and giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts on Swami Vivekananda's philosophy while commemorating 159th birth anniversary of Swamiji. The platform, that is Sradheya Baburao Paldhikar Memorial Law Lecture Series, is also very special to me personally. I am feeling elated and fortunate. Many of you must not be aware that I am a Swayamsevak of Parisad. In the year 1978, in my early childhood days, I was extremely fortunate to have come in contact with Sradheya Baburao ji. Baburao ji, as you used to call him, was a guiding factor during my childhood days. I never knew that one day I will be called upon to deliver a law lecture in memory of Adharaniya Baburao ji. A stockily built man, neatly dressed, fair complexion, soft spoken, and extremely affectionate person was Sradheya Baburao ji. The nationalism which runs in my blood today has been injected during my childhood days by some of the great people like Baburao ji Paldhikar, Baburao ji Deshpande, Samji, Arvindji, Haryarda, and many others. Indeed, I am extremely fortunate to have come in contact with these great human beings in my formative years. While I was attending Chandi Swayam Sakha as a Swayamsevak, which was close to Prantiya Karjalaya of RSS situated at Chandi Road, Cuttack, Baburao ji and others were coming to attend Sakha in the evening. After the Sakha, we used to sit with them and for long hours to listen to the inspiring stories and words of wisdom from them. While paying my rich tribute to Sradheya Baburao ji, now I am going to deliver my keynote address on the subject, "To know India is to know Swami Vivekananda, a constitutional pilgrimage." The philosophy of Swami Vivekananda is the driving force of our great nation, the icon for every youth of this nation. Within a very short span of life, Swami Vivekananda collected, summarized our ancient civilization and the beauty of Hindu religion. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose once said, Vivekananda is the maker of modern India. Netaji called him the maker of modern India. So also Rabindranath Tagore told, if you want to know India, study Vivekananda. According to me, one has no right to introduce himself or herself as an Indian unless he or she has read about Swami Vivekananda. It would not be exaggeration of fact if India would be internationally known as the land where the great saint Swami Vivekananda had taken birth. To know the philosophy of Vivekananda, we must understand what was going on in the mind of Swami Vivekananda. I am quoting his words. The distinction between man and woman, between rich and poor, the literate and the illiterate, Brahmans and Chandals, he tried to root out all. And he was the harbinger of peace. The separation between Hindus and Christians, all are now things of past. That fight about distinction that there was belonged to another era. In this Satya Yuga, the tidal wave of Sri Ramakrishna's love has unified all. That was what Swami Vivekananda said once. Now, coming to his early life, Swamiji's early life, Swami Vivekananda, as you all must be knowing about little bit about Swami Vivekananda's uh, life sketch. I'm just giving briefly the life sketch of the great saint of India. Swami Vivekananda was born on 12th of January 1863 as Narendra Datta into an aristocratic Bengal family in Calcutta. He was one of the 9 siblings. His father was an attorney at the Calcutta High Court, and his grandfather was a renowned Sanskrit and Persian scholar who had left the family at the young age of 25 to become a monk. Swami Vivekananda's mother had said once that I prayed to Lord Shiva for a son and he has sent me one of his demons, in referring to Swamiji's boisterous and naughty nature. His father's progressive and rational attitude, coupled with his mother's religious temperament, had shaped his thinking and personality from a very young age. Additionally, his grandfather had instilled in him a fascination and curiosity for spirituality. Swami Vivekananda was a Shrutidhara, a person in possession of a prodigious memory. He was an avid reader with an interest in a wide variety of subjects, including philosophy, religion, history, social science, art, and literature. He was also interested in Hindu scriptures and was trained in Indian classical music, while also regularly participating in physical exercise, sports, and organizing activities. He studied Western logic, Western philosophy, and European history at the General Assembly's institution, now known as the Scottish Church College. William Hastie, the principal of Christian College, Calcutta, from where Narendra graduated, wrote, Narendra is really a genius. I have traveled far and wide, but I have never come across a lad of his talent and possibilities. Even in German universities, among philosophical students, he is bound to make his mark in life. In 1980, he joined Keshav Chandra Sen's Navavidhan, which was established by Sen after meeting Ramakrishna and reconverting from Christianity to Hinduism. It was here that he became acquainted with Western philosophy. His initial beliefs were shaped by Brahmo concept, which denounces polytheism and the caste restriction, and recommends a streamlined, rationalized, monotheistic belief in God, strongly influenced by a modernistic reading of all Hindu scriptures. In late 1881 or early 1882, he went to Dakshineshwar with 2 of his friends and met Ramakrishna. This meeting proved to be a turning point in his life. Although he did not initially accept Ramakrishna as his teacher and rebelled against his ideas, he was attracted by his personality and began to frequently visit him at Dakshineshwar. As a member of Brahmo Samaj, he opposed idol worship, polytheism, and Ramakrishna's worship of Kali. He tested Ramakrishna, who faced his arguments patiently. Try to see the truth from all angles, he used to reply. At a very young age, Narendra, as he then was, found himself grappling with a question which marked the real beginning of his intellectual quest for God. He asked several prominent Calcutta residents if they had come face to face with God, but none of their answers satisfied him. At this time, Narendra met Debendranath Tagore, the leader of Brahmo Samaj, and asked if he had seen God. Instead of answering his question, Tagore said, "My boy, you have a yogi's eyes." But he kept looking for an answer, and it was Ramakrishna finally who really answered Narendra's question by saying, "Yes, I see him as I see you, only in an infinitely intense sense." After Ramakrishna's death, his devotees and admirers stopped supporting his disciples. Rent accumulated, and the disciples had to find a new place to live. Many returned home, adopting a grihastha, family-oriented way of life, but Narendra decided to convert a dilapidated house at Baranagar into a new mutt for the remaining disciples. Rent for this Baranagar mutt was low and was raised by holy begging, Madhukari, which is known as Madhukari. In Antapur, on the Christmas Eve of 1886, Narendra and 8 other disciples took formal monastic vows. They decided to live their lives as their masters lived. It was then Narendra took the name Swami Vivekananda. In 1988, Swamiji left the monastery as a paribrajak, the Hindu religious life of a wandering monk, without fixed abode, without ties, independent and strangers wherever they go, living primarily on Viksha. He traveled on foot and by railways. During his travels, he met and stayed with Indians from all religions and walks of life, scholars, divans, rajas, Hindus, Muslims, Christians, pariahs, the low-caste workers, and government officials. Swamiji started his journey to the west on the 31st May 1883 and visited several cities in Japan, China, and Canada en route to the United States, finally reaching Chicago on 30th July 1893, where the World Parliament of Religions took place in September 1893. The Parliament was an initiative of a judge of the Illinois Supreme Court, Charles C. Bonney, to gather all the religions of the world and show the substantial unity of many religions in the good deeds of the religious life. Swami Vivekananda wanted to join but was disappointed to learn that no one without credentials from a bona fide organization would be accepted as a delegate. It was important for him to speak at the parliament as he thought this was his opportunity to introduce his nation to the world. Swamiji therefore submitted an application introducing himself as a monk of the oldest order of sannyasis, founded by Sankara, which was supported by the Brahmo Samaj representative Pratap Chandra Majumdar, who was also a member of the Parliament Selection Committee, classifying the Swami as a representative of the Hindu monastic order. His Chicago lecture in 1893 marked the beginning of a mission that would reform India. He spent about 2 years in New York establishing the first Vedanta Society in 1894. He traveled widely across Europe and engaged Indologists such as Max Muller and Paul Duchenne. He even debated with eminent scientists such as Nikola Tesla before embarking on his reformist mission in India. This idea of Swamiji covered almost all aspects of socio-political developments we have seen in the country, whether it be upholding nationalism, implementation of a Vedantic system of education, achieving social justice and a system of equal opportunity, taking steps toward socialism, particularly by achieving the concept of spiritual socialism, the development of marginalized classes by adopting the principle of reasonable classification, or the importance of secularism. Swamiji's thoughts and beliefs, and more importantly, his vision, have touched upon all these aspects. Rabindranath Tagore once told French Nobel laureate Romain Rolland that if you want to know India, study Vivekananda. In him, everything is positive and nothing negative. Swamiji's work inspired Mahatma Gandhi to say, after having gone through the works of Vivekananda, the love that I had for my country became 1,000-fold. Moreover, Pandit Nehru, in his book Discovery of India, mentions that he was no politician in the ordinary sense of the word, and yet he was, I think, one of the great founders, if you like, you may use any other word, of the national modern movement of India. And a great number of people who took more or less an active part in that movement in a later date drew their inspiration from Swami Vivekananda. Swamiji was the first person in the then India to promote the principle of secularism and common brotherhood on such a global scale. That then Indian society, and more specifically the Hindu society, was full of dogmatism, superstitions, and religious rigidities. Since the very beginning, Hindu religion was a liberal religion, but with the passage of time, Hindu religion was lost its liberal attitude, first in the medieval period and then in the modern or British period. Quoting Swami Vivekananda, quote, the Christian has not to become Hindu or Buddhist, nor a Hindu or a Buddhist to become Christian, but each must assimilate the spirit of the other and yet preserve his individuality and grow according to his own law of growth. Every religion has produced men and women of most exalted character. If in the face of this evidence, anybody dreams of the exclusive survival of his own religion and destruction of others, I pity him from the bottom of my heart. Unquote. Swami Vivekananda was a reformist of Indian history who pronounced the spirit of common brotherhood and recommended the observance of the same to all Indian citizens. In his eyes, the whole world is a place of universal brotherhood. He believed that to construct a society, future society, everyone's interests must be equally protected, irrespective of the caste, creed, race, religion, sex, color, nationality, or place of birth. Swamiji had prescribed the principle of humanism as the solution of all problems. He believed in the principle of humanism and considered human beings to be above all. According to him, no religion can supersede humanism. In this sense, all religions are equal and should serve the interest of the human beings. Unity of all religions worldwide and love for all human beings would lead to peace and harmony. That was his solution. The principle of common brotherhood pronounced by Swami Vivekananda was not confined to the national territory of India. In fact, he himself had introduced it in the Chicago World Parliament of Religion in 1893, which was widely accepted by the whole world. The significance of idea of common brotherhood was so important and struck such a chord that it was accepted by the United Nations in the post-World War II era. The United Nations adopted the Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 to promote the idea of universal brotherhood all over the world. Article 1 of the UDHR reads as all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. Based on this Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 and the philosophy of Swami Vivekananda, the preamble of the Indian Constitution has acknowledged the necessity of promoting common brotherhood in India by declaring fraternity as one of the ideas enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution. But it is to be remembered that the ideal of fraternity or common brotherhood would become fruitless without the ideal of secularism. Secularism is very simply put, giving equal status to all religion, and common brotherhood brings all persons at the same footing by removing the differences between them. These two ideals are the basic requirement for the peaceful coexistence of a civilized human society. Secularism is a doctrine that rejects religion and religious consideration. India has adopted this doctrine at the time of making of the Indian Constitution, which is reflected in the preamble of the Constitution, where the resolve of the people declares to secure all its citizens the liberty of worship. More emphasis has been given to this contention when the word secular has been inserted expressly in the preamble by the 42nd Amendment Act 1976. Apart from the preamble, India has tried to enforce secularism by guaranteeing the freedom of religion as a fundamental right. But while promoting and propagating secularism, India has not accepted the traditional doctrine of rejection of religion. Rather, India has adopted the idea of secularism as being neutral in matters of religion. In this sense, the state is neither anti-religion nor pro-religion. The state is neutral in the matter of religion and treats every religion equally. The equality of all religion can become a catalyst for promoting universal brotherhood in India. This is the concept of Swami Vivekananda for establishing universal brotherhood with the help of secularism or equality of religions by rejecting the religious rigidities, dogmatism, and unequal treatment of different religions. His all-embracing love for everyone, irrespective of the caste, creed, race, religion, sex, or place of birth, has enlightened the then Hindu religious society. He has disregarded the differences between men and women, rich and poor, literate and illiterate, as well as between Brahmins and Chandals. Not only that, he has also tried to remove the differences between Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. According to him, all religions are equal because of those have originated from the words of God. He also believed in the idea of unity of God. In this sense, he has tried to bring all religions under one umbrella. While in Chicago, Vivekananda stressed upon the important and noble facets of Indian life. First, he said that the Indian tradition believed not only in tolerance but in acceptance of all religions as true. Finally, at the last meeting, he proclaimed, if anybody dreams of the exclusive survival of his own religion and the destruction of others, I pity him from the bottom of my heart, and point out to him that upon the banner of every religion will soon be written, in spite of resistance, help and not fight, assimilation and not destruction, and harmony and peace, not dissension. Swami Vivekananda had tried to bring his Vedantic philosophy to the mass. He opined that the first step in getting the required strength to be upholding the Upanishad was to believe in oneself. Swami Vivekananda was a key figure in 19th century spiritual revival in India. Generally, he was considered to be a spiritual leader without relation to politics. Yet, he was the first Indian patriot to inspire the political ideologies of revolutionaries against the British government. Although Swamiji never participated in politics in a narrow sense, but his ideologies, writings, and speeches strongly influenced the development of modern socio-political India. Swamiji's ideas cover almost all aspects of social and national life, including nationalism, mass education, secularism, eradication of casteism, women empowerment, etc. It is these ideas which were later enshrined in the preamble and fundamental rights of the Indian Constitution. The Indian Constitution is the grundnorm of the country. It is the paramount source of law. After we attained independence in 1947, the struggle of being an independent nation had only just begun. The Constitution was framed and adopted keeping in mind the destiny that we wish to achieve as a nation. At this juncture, the preamble became an important indicator of the spirit and backbone of the Indian Constitution. As held by the Honorable Supreme Court in the case Berubari case reported in year 1960 Supreme Court 845, the preamble to the Constitution is a key to open the mind of the makers and shows the general purpose for which they made the several provisions in the Constitution. A bare perusal of the preamble unveils the true intent and objective of the framers of the Constitution. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity and integrity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this Constitution. Pay close attention to the words secular, justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. This preamble paved the way for India to become the country of Swami Vivekananda's dream. At this point, we may also consider the discussions partaken by several members of the Constituent Assembly during the Constituent Assembly debates to fully grasp the extent to which Swamiji had influenced the Constitution, how big his role was in shaping the Constitution of India the way we know it today. The conceptive ideologies of Dr. Radhakrishnan, which he had expressed in a speech in the debates of the Constituent Assembly, where he clearly described the philosophy of our Constitution. It is essential for any Constitution which is drawn up to make all citizens realize that their basic privileges, education, social and economic, are afforded to them, that there will be cultural autonomy, that nobody will be superseded, that it will be a constitution which will be democratic in the true sense of the term, where from political freedom we will march on to economic freedom and equity, every individual should feel that he is proud to belong to this great land. Apart from all this, a nation doesn't depend on identity of race, sentiment, or on ancestral memories, but it depends on a persistent and continuous way of life that has come down to us. Such a way of life belongs to the very soil of this land. It is there indigenous to this country as much as water of the Ganges or the snows of Himalayas. From the very roots of our civilization down in the Indus Valley to the present day, the same great culture is represented among Hindus and Muslims. We have stood for the ideals of comprehension and charity all these centuries. These ideas of Dr. Radhakrishnan about his country appear in perfect harmony with the ideologies of Swami Vivekananda. Furthermore, in the discussion surrounding the national flag, Mr. H.B. Kamath drew support from the cherished ideas of Vivekananda. He said, Pandit Nehru referred to our role as peacemakers and peace bringers. That is certainly true. India's role has been that from years sempiternal, from the beginning of time. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, we have never dipped our hands in the neighbor's blood. Our embattled cohorts have never marched into other lands for conquest, and we have always been the harbinger of peace and the makers of peace in this war-torn, war-weary world. In matters of equality and reasonable classification, an observation made by Sri Upendranath Burman is quite relevant. In a report, equality rights and observed, I submit that we, the scheduled caste, have joined wholeheartedly in the constitution making, not only not constitution making, not only from the outside, but as members of the Congress, because we know that whatever may be our shortcomings during this period of our dependence, whatever crimes we may have imbibed during our unfortunate period, there had been born men amongst us, especially of Bengal, I can say, like Vivekananda and Rabindranath Tagore, who inspired in us the faith and hope of rejuvenation of India. While considering inclusion of Article 51 pertaining to international peace in the Constitution, Professor B.H. Khardekar reminded the Assembly of Indian tradition of keeping peace and maintaining good relation with other countries. And again, he mentioned Vivekananda in his speech to support his views. India, as I said, has a spiritual heritage. The mission of India is the mission of peace. Right from Ram Tirth and Vivekananda down to Tagore, if they have done anything, they have very much strengthened it throughout history. It is not because we have been weak, but because it has been in our blood that we have been carrying on this mission of peace. Non-violence is in the soil and in the heart of every Indian. When the issue of untouchability in Indian society was raised, Dr. Manmohan Das from West Bengal argued great men and philosophers of this ancient land, Swami Vivekananda, Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Rabindranath Tagore, and others who led a relentless struggle against this heinous custom, would also be very much pleased today to see that independent India, free India, has finally done away with this malignant sore on the body of Indian society. As a Hindu, I believe in the immortality of the soul of this great man, but for whose devotion and lifelong service, India would not have been what she is today, would be smiling upon us at this hour at our courage and boldness in doing away with this heinous custom of untouchability. Similarly, while discussing the right to freedom to profess, propagate, and practice religious beliefs under Article 19 of the draft constitution, Pandit Lakshmikant Maitra clarified the concept of secularism in the Indian constitutional framework. His view of secularism was deeply inspired by the views of Vivekananda, as in the later part of his speech he said, the great Swami Vivekananda used to say that India is respected and revered all over the world because of her rich spiritual heritage. The Western world, strong with all the strength of a materialistic civilization, rich with the acquisition of science, having a dominating position in the world, is very poor today because of its utter lack of spiritual treasure. And here does India step in. India has to import this rich spiritual treasure, this message of hers to the West. If we are to do that, if we are to educate the world, if we are to remove the doubts and misconceptions and the colossal ignorance that prevails in the world about India's culture and heritage, this right must be inherent. The right to profess and propagate her religious faith must be considered. Mr. S.B. Kamath in support argued that we are heirs to an immortal and a spiritual heritage, a heritage which is not physical, nor material, nor temporal, a heritage which is of the spirit, a spirit that is ever was and ever shall be, a heritage that is eternal. Let us not squander this invaluable heritage. Let us not dissipate this heritage. Let us remain true to our ancient heritage, our spiritual genius. Let us not lightly cast away the torch that has been handed down to us from time immemorial. Let us, in the words of Sri Swami Vivekananda, aspire to conquer the world spiritually. Mr. S.G. Kamath, in support of the move made by B.R. Ambedkar and while addressing the issue of object of the preamble, argued that we, the people of India, will not forget our spiritual genius and our ancient traditions. It was Swami Vivekananda who said that the day India forgets God, the day she discards spirituality, the day she will die, that day she will die, and that day she will cease to be a force in the world. I hope we will keep alive our tradition in spite of the fact that we lightheartedly forget to invoke the name of God in the preamble. Let us work in this constitution in the spirit of divine guidance, under divine grace and blessings. It was Mahatma Gandhi who all in his prayers prayed, Sabko Sanmati De Bhagavan. Swami Vivekananda exhorted India to rise and chanted the Vedantic mantra, Uttista Jagrata Prapya Vara Nibodhata, awake, which means awake, arise, and stop not till the goal is reached. We have reached our goal, yet we have got to reach a higher goal, and let us address ourselves to that task and bend our energies to the attainment of that goal so that this ancient land of ours, the common man, after all, a constitution is only for the good of the common man, that is its touchstone. The ordinary man may have his life and have it more abundantly. The repeated mention of Swamiji in Constituent Assembly debates show us the relevance of his philosophy in the minds of the framers of Indian Constitution. His ideas inspired the members of the Constituent Assembly to choose the path shown by him whenever that could be followed. The Supreme Court is the guardian of the Indian Constitution. It has the authority to interpret the provisions and to give effect to the noble ideas of the framers. The revolutionary thoughts of Swamiji have had such an impact on the mass and society that even today, judges often rely on Swamiji's ideas and thoughts to propagate growth and development in the country. Swamiji's ideas of religious tolerance and secularism have always been relevant in our country. You could say he was the first openly secular citizen in India. In his speech, he often argued for the assimilation of the spirit of different religious beliefs. At the final session of the Parliament of the World Religion, Swamiji famously said, the Christian is not to become a Hindu or a Buddhist, nor a Hindu or a Buddhist to become a Christian, but each must assimilate the spirit of the others and yet preserve his individuality and grow according to his own law of growth. In a letter written to Muhammad Sarfaraz Hussain of Nainital on 10 June 1898, he said, I am firmly persuaded that without the help of practical Islam, the theories of Vedantism however fine and wonderful they may be, are entirely valueless to the vast mass of mankind. We want to lead mankind to the place where there is neither the Vedas, nor the Bible, nor the Quran. Yet this has to be done by harmonizing the Vedas, the Bibles, and the Qurans. Mankind ought to be taught that religions are but the varied expression of the religion which is oneness. These unique ideas of a 19th century monk remain relevant even today when, in the case pertaining to the demolition of Babri Masjid in Ayodhya, the Honorable Supreme Court relied on Swami Vivekananda's definition of religion. Swami Vivekananda said, I quote, religion is not in doctrines, in dogmas, nor in intellectual argumentation. It is being and becoming, it is realization, unquote. In another matter, titled as A.S. Narayan Dikshitulu versus State of Andhra Pradesh, while explaining Hindu faith and practice, the court said the concept of Hindu religious faith referred to in the judgment in the narration of the fact needs preface with inner depth of religion as revealed by one Swami Vivekananda scholastic concept in his The Complete Works, Volume 1 at page 124 and 2, Broad Spectrum of Self-Realization by Sri Aurobindo. Swami Vivekananda had stated that, I quote, each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy by one or more or all of these and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or temples or forms are but secondary details. Religion is based upon faith and belief, and in most cases consists only of different sets of theories, and that is the reason why there is difference in forms. Thereafter, at page 341, he had stated that get rid in the first place of all these limited ideas of God and see Him in every person, working through all hands, walking through all feet, and eating through every mouth. He lives through all minds of His thinking. He is self evident, nearer unto us than ourselves. To know this religion is faith, and may it please the Lord to give us this faith, unquote. In state of Uttar Pradesh versus Lalaji Singh Yadav, the Honorable Supreme Court again quoted Swami Vivekananda, I quote, what offends a primitive people may be laughable for progressive communities. What is outrageous hearsay for one religion or sect or country or time may be untouchably holy for another. Some primitive people may still be outraged by the admonition of Swami Vivekananda. Our religion is in the kitchen, our God is the cooking pot, and our religion is, don't touch don't touch me. I am holy. Quoted at page 339 by Jawaharlal Nehru in Discovery of India. Unquote. Similarly, in S.R. Bomai versus Union of India, 1994 Supreme Court 1918, the court noted, I quote, Swami Vivekananda explaining the Vedantic ideas of God and religion in comparison with Western thoughts stated that the religious attitude is always to seek the dignity inside of his own self as a natural characteristic of Hindu religion, and religious attitude is always presented by making the subject close his eyes looking inward. Swami Vivekananda stated that right of religious ideals is the same morality. One thing is only preach. Myself say Om, others say Jehovah, another Allah, Muhammad, another Christ Jesus. Swami Vivekananda and Mahatma Gandhi, though greatest Hinduists, their teachings and examples of life give us message of the blend of religion and the secularism for the good of all the men. In this case, the Honorable Supreme Court upheld the status of secularism in the preamble of the Constitution of India by declaring it as a part of the basic structure of Indian Constitution. The three propositions which emerged in the context of secularism in this case were that 1. secularism is a part of the basic structure of the constitution. 2. The secularism inter alia means that the freedom of religion, which is guaranteed by the constitution, only permits the free pursuit of spiritual life as distinct from the secular life, which pertains to the exclusive domain of the affairs of the state. Secularism thus prohibits any encroachment of religion into secular activities and prohibits any citizen from mixing religion into a political activity such as election over and above what is already contained in section 123(3) within bracket 3A of the Representation of the People's Act 1951. 3. Secularism, which is a basic feature of our constitution, implies that in matters of state, religion has no place, while freedom of religion is guaranteed to all persons in India from the point of view of the state. The religion, faith, or belief of the person is immaterial. No political party can simultaneously be a religious party. Politics and religion cannot be mixed. Any state government which pursues unsecular politics or unsecular course of action acts contrary to the constitutional mandate and renders itself amenable to action. On social discrimination, I quote, our aristocratic ancestors went to trading the masses of the country under feet till they became helpless, till the poor people neatly forgot that they were human beings. They have been compelled to be merely hewers of wood and drawers of water for centuries. So much of so the most dominical and brutal arrangements called from the crude ideas of hereditary transmission and other such gibberish from the Western world are brought forward to brutalize and tyrannize over the poor. Unquote. Swami Vivekananda. Swamiji wanted the upper classes in India to forget their exclusive privileges and merge themselves with the masses. The new India, according to him, would arise out of the peasant's cottage, grasping the plough out of the hearts of fishermen, the cobbler and the sweeper, the grocer's shop, from the oven of the feeder's cellar, from the factory, from the mart and from market, from the forest, from hills and mountains. Swamiji was by far the first in India to call himself a socialist. In his remarkable pamphlet, I Am a Socialist, he did not quite preach an armed struggle between the classes, but surely advocated a complete fusion of all classes and castes. According to him, the state of a civilization is to be judged by the way it treats its women. Swamiji was always considered to be a social revolutionary when it came to discrimination on the basis of caste. The Honorable Supreme Court of India, while condemning the vices of untouchability, has referred to him time and again in a case pertaining to the reservation of government posts for the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. The Honorable Court denounced untouchability by quoting Swamiji. I quote, we cannot blink at the agony of the depressed classes over the centuries, condemned by all social reforms as rank, irreligion, and social injustice. Swami Vivekananda, for instance, stung by glaring social injustice, argued the same power is in every man, the one manifesting more, the other less. Where is the claim to privilege? All knowledge is in every soul, even in the most ignorant. He has not manifested it, but perhaps he has not had the opportunity. The environments were not perhaps suitable to him. When he gets opportunity, he will manifest it. The idea that one man is born superior to another has no meaning in Vedanta. Unquote. The court also observed the revolutionary approach of Swamiji against the age-old suppression of the lower castes. If the Brahmins has more aptitude for learning on the ground of heredity than the Pariah, spend no more money on the Brahmins' education, but spend all on the Pariah. Give to the weak, for there all the gift is needed. Akhil Bharat Sochit Karmachari Sangh versus Union of India, reported in 81, 1 SCC 246. In another case, on the same issue, the apex court condemned the untouchability and said Swami Vivekananda had stated in his complete works that we refuse entirely to identify ourselves with "do not touch me." This is not Hinduism. It is none of our books. It is an unorthodox superstition which has interfered with national life all along the line. State of Karnataka versus Appavalu, Ingale, and others reported in year 93 Supreme Court 1126. In the famous case of Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India, the Supreme Court also quoted Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda, that saintly revolutionary who spanned east and west, exhorted, dwelling on the nation's fall of the last century. My idea as to the keynote of our national downfall is that we do not mix with other nations. That is the one and sole cause. We never had the opportunity to compare notes. We were Kupamandukas, frogs in a well. One of the great causes of India's misery and downfall has been that she narrowed herself, went into her cell as the oyster does, and refused to give her jewels and her treasures to the other races of mankind, refused to give the life giving truth to thirsting nations outside the Aryan fold. For centuries, these priests had been doling out ditch water as a religion overlooking the eternal fountain of Amrit that lies behind us. I consider the great national scene is the neglect of the masses, and that is one of the cause of our downfall. No amount of politics would be of any avail until the masses in India are well educated, well fed, well cared for. If we want to regenerate India, we must work for them. So long as millions live in hunger and ignorance, I hold every man a traitor who, having been educated at their expense, pays no heed to them. I do not believe in a God who cannot give us bread here, giving me eternal bliss in heaven. Quotation from Swami Vivekananda. Swamiji always believed in the Vedantic system of education under which complete physical, mental, and spiritual development must be achieved. However, he never rejected Western knowledge sources. Rather, he proposed a system of education free from all prejudices. He said, education is not filling the mind with a lot of facts, perfecting the instrument, and getting complete mastery of my own mind is the ideal education. Similarly, he argued for mass education as a tool for national progress. How can there be any progress of the country without the spread of education? The dunning of knowledge. Further acknowledging the duty of state, he said, if the poor boy cannot come to education, education must go to him. At the same time, his argument for mass development also support the adoption of a welfare state. As he said, intelligence must not remain the monopoly of the culture of few. It will be disseminated from higher to lower classes. Education is coming and compulsory education will follow. What a prophetic instinct is reflected in this comment. How true it is in the context of present day India when we have adopted provisions for compulsory education for all in our constitution. These thoughts were forced in the course of his 14 years of travel on foot across India when he came to know hunger, starvation, shelterless living, the misery of the poor, and also their great potential. His prescription was a program of national regeneration in which education must play a major role. He addressed his appeals to three sections: the youth, the women, and the lower classes. He demanded that the task of educating the younger generation should be taken over from the hands of foreign rulers and from orthodox religious institutions and given to the society as a whole. Also, he considered it necessary that education should be patriotic, useful, and that the achievements of advanced technology should be mastered by our younger people. Again, he attached great importance to professional vocational training and to further education and information and informal education, ideas which have become fashionable only just now after a century. In a number of judgments, the Honorable Supreme Court cited the philosophies and ideas of Swamiji to interpret the present day law and to frame the future policies regarding education. In the famous case of Aruna Rai and others versus Union of India, reported in 2005 Supreme Court 3226, the court observed our educational system aims at only information-based knowledge and the holistic views, turning the student into a perfect human being and a useful member of the society has been completely set aside. Swami Vivekananda aptly said, education is not the amount of information that is put in your brain and runs right there undigested. All we must have life building, man making, character making, assimilation of ideas. If education is identical with information, libraries are the greatest sages of the world and encyclopedias are receipts. In another case, of P.A. Inamdar and others versus State of Maharashtra, reported in 2002, Supreme Court 3176. The Supreme Court, while stressing on the quality of education required to be achieved, the court quoted Swami Vivekananda and Swami Ranganathananda. I quote, "We want that education by which character is formed, strength of mind is and the intellect is expanded, and by which one can stand on one's own feet. The end of all education, all training should be man making. The aim of all training is to make the man grow. The training by which the current and expression will are brought under control and become fruitful is called education." Swamiji on economic injustice. Similarly, while interpreting the concept of economic justice within the Indian constitutional framework, the court in Balbir Kaur and another versus Steel Authority of India Limited, reported in 2000, volume 6, SCC 493, again relied on Swamiji. The Honorable Court said what Swami Vivekananda wrote in a different context may perhaps help a quicker implementation of the goal to bring about the overdue changes for transforming India in a positive way and in fulfilling the dreams of the Constitution fathers. These were the words of Swamiji. I quote, "It is imperative that all these various yogas should be carried out in practice. Mere theories about them will not do any good. First, we have to hear about them. Then we have to think about them. We have to reason the thoughts out, impress them on our minds, and we have to meditate on them, realize them until at last they become our whole life. No longer will religion remain a bundle of ideas or theories or an intellectual assent. It will enter into our very self. By means of an intellectual assent, we may today subscribe to many foolish things and change our minds altogether tomorrow. But true religion never changes. Religion is realization, not talk, nor doctrine is, however beautiful they may be. It is being and becoming, not hearing or acknowledging. It is the whole soul becoming changed into what it is, what it believes. That is religion. India is a land of unity and diversity. Persons of different race, religion, color, creed, and sex have contributed at different times in different manner towards the progress and development of Indian society. A relook at the constitutional provisions beginning from the preamble and in chapter on fundamental rights, directive principle of state policy, fundamental duties, and others relating to formation of democratic government at the center and the state would make it evident that our constitution in theory and practice is a testament of the people of India to protect and promote all fundamental human freedoms with the dignity of every individual purely as a human being, regardless of and economic status. The preamble contains the solemn resolve of people of India to protect all essential human freedom of individuals. The right to life, liberty, equality, and dignity form the bedrock of our constitutional structure. Directive principles are guidelines for the state to take measures to improve quality of human life, such as ensuring human condition for the working class, social security measures for old, sick, and handicapped, compulsory primary education, and maintaining institutions for public health and similarly many other activities for social upliftment and happiness of mankind. The 11th judge bench of Apex Court, very notably in TMFI Foundation case, held, I quote, the 1 billion population of India consists of 6 main ethnic groups and 52 major tribes, 6 major religions, and 6,400 castes and subcastes, 18 major languages, and 1,600 minor languages and dialects. The essence of secularism in India can best be depicted if a relief map of India is made in mosaic, where the aforesaid 1 billion people are the small pieces of marble that go into the making of a map. Each person, whatever his, her language, caste, religion, and his or her individual identity, which has to be preserved, so that when placed together, it goes to the form of a depiction with the different geographical features of India. These small pieces of marbles in the form of human beings, which may individually be dissimilar to each other when placed together in a systematic manner, produced the beautiful map of India. Each piece, like a citizen of India, plays an important part in making the whole. The variation of the colors, as well as different shades of the same color in a map, is the result of these small pieces of different shades and colors of marble. But even when one small piece of marble is removed, the whole map of India would be scarred and the beauty would be lost. Each of the people of India has an important place in the formation of the nation. Each piece has to retain its own color by itself. It may be an insignificant stone, but when placed in a proper manner, goes into the making of a full picture of India in all its different colors and hues. A citizen of India stands in a similar position. The Constitution recognizes the differences among the people of India, but it gives equal importance to each of them. Their differences notwithstanding, for only then can there be a unified secular nation, recognizing the need for the preservation and retention of different pieces that go into the making of a whole nation. The Constitution, while maintaining inter alia the basic principles of equality, contains adequate provisions that ensures the preservation of these different pieces. In every aspect of socio-political life, we can find Swamiji's relevance, although he never proclaimed himself to be a political person. But in reality, the political ideology of our country took a new shape from his ideas. His political ideas were much advanced than the contemporary society. His ideas were universal, proclaiming mass development, total welfare, and equality. His program was 100,000 men and women should go over length and breadth of the land, preaching the gospel of salvation, the gospel of equality. His religion was Indianism. He emphatically argued for non-discrimination, eradication of the vices of casteism and untouchability, and establishment of socio-economic justice on which our constitutional policies were structured. Dr. Bhupendranath Datta in his book said, moreover, the national government of India today is eradication the difference between the high and the low caste. The national constitution guarantees that there should be no such distinction. uh, dialects Dialectics of historical materialism of India rapidly fulfilling the wishes of Swamiji, unquote. It is true that Swamiji came much too early in the benighted country called India, but ultimately the nation has realized the relevance of his teachings in development of this country. The Swamiji appeared to us to be a political prophet than a religious teacher, and we have ever remembered the words of great master. Jai Jagannath, Vande Mataram, Vande Utkal Janani. Thank you.
Thank you, my lord, speaking so extensively, so nicely, with such beautiful research on uh, referring to various case laws and explaining us, making us understand the various concepts like equality and a true meaning of secularism and all these things. We are really grateful to you. Lordship. Now, I shall request our President, Shri Kambupani Padhi, to speak on this subject.
ଆଜିର ଏହି ପବିତ୍ର ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତରେ ମୁଁ ସର୍ବପ୍ରଥମେ ସମ୍ମାନନୀୟ ନ୍ୟାୟାଧୀଶ ଶ୍ରୀଯୁକ୍ତ ଆଦିତ୍ୟ କୁମାର ମହାପାତ୍ରଙ୍କୁ ଅଭିନନ୍ଦନ ଜ୍ଞାପନ କରୁଅଛି ଏବଂ ଆମ ସଙ୍ଗରେ ଉପସ୍ଥିତ ଆମ ସଂଗଠନ ମହାମନ୍ତ୍ରୀ ଜ୍ଞାନ ଭାଇ ଏବଂ ଆମକୁ ଆମର ଅନୁରୋଧରେ ସମୟ ଦେଇଥିବା ଶ୍ରୀଯୁକ୍ତ ଶିବ ଶଙ୍କର ମିଶ୍ର, ଶ୍ରୀଯୁକ୍ତ ପ୍ରବୀର ଭାଇ ଏବଂ ଆମକୁ ପ୍ରଚ୍ଛଦ ପଟ ରହି ସହଯୋଗ କରୁଥିବା ଆମର ତୀର୍ଥ ଭାଇ ଓ ଜ୍ଞାନ ଭାଇ ଏବଂ ସମ୍ମାନସ୍ପଦ ଓଡ଼ିଶା ତଥା ଓଡ଼ିଶା ବାହାରୁ ଆମରି କାର୍ଯ୍ୟକ୍ରମକୁ ଧୈର୍ଯ୍ୟର ସହିତ ଶୁଣୁଥିବା ଆମର ଅଧିବକ୍ତା ବନ୍ଧୁ ଭଗିନୀ, ଆଜି ଏକ ଆମ ପାଇଁ ସ୍ମରଣୀୟର ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତ ଏବଂ ସଂଗଠନ ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ବହୁତ କିଛି ଚିନ୍ତା କରିବାର ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତ ଅଛି। ଯେଉଁ ବିଷୟ ସବୁ ଆମେ ସ୍ୱାମୀଜୀଙ୍କୁ ସ୍ମରଣ କରି ଆମ ଗହଣରେ ସମ୍ମାନୀୟ ନ୍ୟାୟାଧୀଶ ରଖିଲେ ଏବଂ ଶ୍ରୀଯୁକ୍ତ ଶିବୁ ଭାଇ ଆମ ଗହଣରେ ଯେଉଁ ବିଷୟ ଗୁଡ଼ା ରଖିଲେ ଏସବୁର ବହୁତ ପ୍ରଣିଧାନ ଯୋଗ୍ୟ। କାହିଁକି ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଯାଉଛୁ ସ୍ୱାମୀଜୀଙ୍କର ଜୀବନକୁ ଦେଖୁଛୁ, ତାଙ୍କର ସମର୍ପଣ ଭାବକୁ ଦେଖୁଛୁ ଦେଶ ପ୍ରତି, ସଂସ୍କୃତି ପ୍ରତି, ଧର୍ମ ପ୍ରତି, ମାନବିକତା ପ୍ରତି, ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମର ମନ ଆନ୍ଦୋଳିତ ହୋଇଯାଉଛି। ଆମର ଭିତରେ ସ୍ଥାଣୁତା, ଜଡ଼ତା ଧୀରେ ଧୀରେ ଲୋପ ପାଇବାକୁ ଯାଉଛି ଏବଂ ଆମର ଭିତରେ ସ୍ୱତଃ ଭାବରେ ଏକ ନବଜାଗରଣ, ନବସ୍ପନ୍ଦନ ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହେଉଛି। ଏସବୁ କାହିଁକି ହେଉଛି? ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ସ୍ୱାମୀଜୀଙ୍କୁ ମନେ କରୁଛୁ ଭିତରେ ଆମର ମନରେ ଏସବୁ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ କାହିଁକି ଆସୁଛି? ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ ତାଙ୍କର କର୍ମମୟ ଜୀବନରେ, ତାଙ୍କର ଜୀବଦଶା ମଧ୍ୟରେ ସେ ସମାଜକୁ ଯେଉଁ ଦିଗ୍ଦର୍ଶନ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି, ତାଙ୍କର ତପଶ୍ଚର୍ଯ୍ୟା ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଯେଉଁ ବେଦାନ୍ତର, ଭାରତୀୟ ସଂସ୍କୃତିର ଏକ ବିରାଟ ଧରୋହର ଭାବରେ ଆମକୁ ମାର୍ଗଦର୍ଶନ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି ଏବଂ ତତ୍କାଳୀନ ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନକୁ ଏକ ନୂଆ ଦିଗ୍ଦର୍ଶନ ଦେଇଛନ୍ତି। ଏହା କହିବା ବାହୁଲ୍ୟ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ସର୍ବପ୍ରଥମେ ସ୍ୱାମୀଜୀ ତାଙ୍କର ଗୁରୁ ରାମକୃଷ୍ଣ ପରମହଂସଙ୍କୁ ଭେଟିଥିଲେ, ଏକ ବହୁତ ଭାବାବେଗର ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତ ଥିଲା। ରାମକୃଷ୍ଣ ପରମହଂସ କହିଥିଲେ, ଆଜି ମୋର ଜୀବନ ସାର୍ଥକ ହେଇଗଲା, ଆଜି ମୋର ଲକ୍ଷ୍ୟକୁ ମୁଁ ପାଇଗଲି। ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସେ ବହୁତ ଖୁସିରେ ଧରି ପକେଇଥିଲେ, ଆଲିଙ୍ଗନ କରି ପକେଇଥିଲେ। ତ ଆମେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ପଛକୁ ଯାଉଛୁ, ଭାରତର ପରାଧୀନତା ଏବଂ ପରାଧୀନତାର ପରେ ଆମର ଯେଉଁ ପ୍ରତିରୋଧ କଲୁ ଏବଂ ଆମେ ସଂଘର୍ଷ କଲୁ ଏବଂ ସେହି ସମୟରେ ପରମ ଋଷି ରାମକୃଷ୍ଣ ପରମହଂସଙ୍କର ଆବିର୍ଭାବ ହେଲା ଏବଂ ତାଙ୍କର ଦିଗ୍ଦର୍ଶନ, ତାଙ୍କର ଅଧ୍ୟାତ୍ମ ଏସବୁକୁ ନେଇକରି ଯେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଚିନ୍ତନ କରୁ ଏବଂ ତାର ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ସମୟରେ ଭାରତର ଆଧ୍ୟାତ୍ମିକତାରେ ଯେଉଁ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ଆସିଲା, ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନରେ ଯେଉଁ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ପାଇଁ ମହାମନୀଷୀମାନେ ସଂଗ୍ରାମ କଲେ ଏବଂ ସ୍ୱତନ୍ତ୍ରତା ପ୍ରାପ୍ତ ପାଇଁ ଯେଉଁ ସଂଗ୍ରାମ ହେଲା, ତାକୁ ଆମେ ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ କହିପାରିବା ଯେ ସେହି ସମୟଟା ଯୁଗ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନର ସମୟ ଥିଲା ଭାରତ ପାଇଁ ଏବଂ ତ ସଙ୍ଗେ ସଙ୍ଗେ ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ମାନବିକତା ଏବଂ ଜୀବଜଗତ ପାଇଁ ଏକ ଯୁଗ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନର ସମୟ ଥିଲା। ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କର ବାଣୀ କେବଳ ଯେ ଆମ ଭାରତୀୟଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ଭାରତୀୟ ସାମ୍ବିଧାନିକ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା ମଧ୍ୟରେ ତାତ୍ପର୍ଯ୍ୟପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ତାହା ନୁହେଁ। ସ୍ୱାମୀ ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କର ବାଣୀ ସମଗ୍ର ମାନବ ଜାତି ପାଇଁ ଅତ୍ୟନ୍ତ ତାତ୍ପର୍ଯ୍ୟ ବହନ କରିଥାଏ। ଯଦି ଆମେ କିଛି ଛୋଟ ଛୋଟ ବିଷୟକୁ ନେବା ଏବଂ ଆମେ ଅଧ୍ୟୟନ କରିବା, ତାହେଲେ ଆମକୁ ବହୁତ ବଡ଼ ପ୍ରେରଣା ମିଳିବ। ମୁଁ ଯଦି ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କର କିଛି ବିଷୟ ଯାହା ଆମର ଗୋଟିଏ ସଂଗଠନ ପାଇଁ ତାଙ୍କର ମନରେ ବିଚାର କ'ଣ ଥିଲା, ସେ ଗୋଟେ ସଂଗଠନର ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟାୟକୁ କିପରି ସମୀକ୍ଷା କରିଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ବର୍ଣ୍ଣନା କରିଥିଲେ, आमे देखिबा तो प्रथम तह से कहूतिले जे गोटे संगठन तीनटा स्तर दे गति करिथाय। प्रथम होउची जेतेबेले संगठन ता प्रारंभिक स्तर रे रहिबो तार ग्रहणीयता नथिबो ताकू बुझिबारे लोकंकर आग्रह नथिबो से समय रे आमे साधारणतः देखो संगठन को संगठन विचार को संगठन कार्यकर्ता को बहुत विद्रूपर सम्मुखीन होगा पड़ी था एवं आमर विचारधारा संगठन रे काम करुवा समस्त कार्यकर्ता अनुभूति निश्चित भाव आमे से समय अतिक्रम कर सारीचु टाही टपरा विद्रूप बहुत किसी शुणी सारीचु एवं तापरे आमे ए सब जेतेबेले आमर विषय समाज शुणिबा आरंभ कला बुझिबा आरंभ कला एवं समान अनुभव कले जे मानकर जो विचार अच्छी यह राष्ट्र को एवं राष्ट्र जीवन को एवं भारतीय संस्कृति को बहुत उच्च स्तर को लेकर पहुंचे देव सेते विरोध प्रतिरोध हमको सामना करने पड़ा एवं वर्तमान आम से सब अवस्था को अतिक्रम करी समाज रे ग्रहणीयतार स्तर को आम आसीचु निश्चित भाव में समस्त अनुभव थी वर्तमान आमको समाज ग्रहण करुची विभिन्न विचारधारा लोक आमको ग्रहण करुचंती एवं आमर विचार प्रति आमर कर्म प्रति एवं आमे जो रास्ता रे चलुछु ताकू समाने ग्रहण करके आम संगरे आकु जीवा पे बाहरुचंती तो एई समय आम पई सबुतर बड़ परीक्षार समय सेति पई आज स्वामी विवेकानंदंकर तांकर बाणी आम पई बहुत किसी महत्व बहन करि थाए। मो स्वामी विवेकानंद सब बड़ उद्घोष थिला से सब कहते उत्तिष्ठ जाग्रत आगू बढ़ी चल एवं निरवच्छिन्न भाव आगू बढ़ी चल जिते तुमको लक्ष्य प्राप्ति होई नहीं। तो ये जो विषयटा थिला ताहा आमर उपनिषद एक श्लोक रु उद्धृत होता मुझे श्लोक निश्चित भाव आज कहवा प्रासंगिक मन करुचे चरण वै मधु विंद्यति चरण स्वादु मृदुम्बरम सूर्यस्य पश्य श्रेमाणं यो न तंद्र यत् चरंश्चैरवेति चरंश्चैरवेति अर्थात सूर्य उदय होचंती मध्याह्न आसुची अस्तगामी होचंती पुणी सूर्य उदय होचंती सूर्यंकर गति केवे थमु नहीं सूर्यंकर गति केवे बंद हो नहीं सही प्रकार आमर काम करिवार गति आमर चिंतन गति आमर विचार गति आमर कार्यशैली गति सर्वदा आगू बढ़ी चलू एवं स्वाभाविकतार सहित पूर्ण निष्ठार सहित जदि आम एपरि आगू चलिवा परम वैभवशाली राष्ट्र गठन रे आम निश्चय से लक्ष्य प्राप्ति करिवा एवं अधिवक्ता परिषद हिसाब रे आमर मूल विषय हला जे आमे जो विधि स्थापन करा है संविधान रो प्रणीत हला से व्यवस्था माध्यम रे किपरि आमे देश को परम वैभवशाली करि परिवा एतिरे निश्चित भाव रे देश माने प्रत्येक नागरिक देशर पर्यावरण देशर चराचरी जीव जगत समस्तंकर कल्याण हो यह आमर विचार आम किपरि ताकू प्राप्त करिवा ए विषय को नहीं करी रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर कविगुरु रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर से तांकर गोटे कविता रे सुंदर भाव वर्णना करथिले से तांकर कविता रे एक भावना छळे रे कहिथिले हे परम पिता अपने कठोर हाथ से एक आघात हमारे देश पर करो और उसको इसी दुनिया में जागृत करो। तो तांकर मध्य से मूल भावना थिला जे सही समय आमर भितर जड़ता दूर हो आम जागृत हो आमर भितर चैतन्य जागरण आसू आमर भितर पूर्णता आसू आउ सही चरवेती मंत्र रे आम आगू बढ़ू ताहले जाई आमे पूर्णता प्राप्त करि परिबा एवं विश्वगुरु होई परिबा। से कविता रे तांकर उद्घोष थिला where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth and where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection. where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dirty desert's scent of death habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. तो ସେହି ବାଣୀ ଏଇ ଯୋଉ କବିତା ରବୀନ୍ଦ୍ରନାଥ ଟେଗୋରଙ୍କର ସେଥିରେ ଉଦ୍ଧୃତ କରିଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କର ଦ୍ୱାରା ପ୍ରେରଣା ପାଇକରି ଏଇ କବିତା ସେ ରଚନା କରିଥିଲେ। ତ ଆଜିର ଏଇ ଦୁଇଟା ପଂକ୍ତି କହିକରି ମୁଁ ମୋର ବିଷୟ ରଖୁଛି ଏବଂ ତା ପୂର୍ବରୁ ଏକ ଛୋଟ ଗଳ୍ପ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଏକ ବିଷୟ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନ କରିବି ଯାହାକି ଆପଣମାନେ ନିଶ୍ଚୟ ଶୁଣିଥିବେ। ଏହି କିଛି ଦିନ ପୂର୍ବରୁ ପରମ ପୂଜନୀୟ ସରସଂଘ ଚାଳକ ମୋହନ ଭାଗବତ ଜୀ ଏକ ସନ୍ଦେଶ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଏଟା କହିଥିଲେ। ବିଷୟ ଛୋଟ ଥିଲା କିନ୍ତୁ ସେଥିରେ ବହୁତ ମହତ୍ୱର କଥା ଥିଲା। ସେଥିରେ ସେ କହିଲେ ଯେ ଏକ ଠେକୁଆ ଖରାବେଳ ହେଇଗଲା, ସେ ବହୁତ ଅଳସ ଅନୁଭବ କରି ଗଛ ଛାଇରେ ରହିଲା, ଆରାମ କରୁଥିଲା। ସେହି ସମୟରେ ଗଛର ଏକ ଡାଳ, ସେଟା ଏକ ତାଳ ଗଛ ଥିଲା, ଶୁଖିଲା ଡାଳ ପଡ଼ିଗଲା। କିନ୍ତୁ ଶୁଖିଲା ଡାଳ ପଡ଼ିବାର ଯେଉଁ ଶବ୍ଦ ହେଲା, ଏତେ ଉଚ୍ଚରୁ ପଡ଼ିବା, ସେ ଶବ୍ଦରେ ସେ ଭୟଭୀତ ହେଇକି ଛାନିଆ ହେଇଗଲା ଏବଂ ପରେ ଦେଖିଲା ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ମୁହୂର୍ତ୍ତରେ ଦେଖିଲା ଶୁଖିଲା ଡାଳଟେ ହିଁ ପଡ଼ିଛି, ଆଉ କିଛି ନୁହେଁ। ସେ ଭାବିଲା, ହେ ଭଗବାନ, ମୁଁ ଏ ଛୋଟ ଡାଳ ପଡ଼ିବାର ଶବ୍ଦରେ ଏମିତି ଡରିଗଲି, ଏତେ ବିଚଳିତ ହେଇଗଲି। ସେ ଭଗବାନଙ୍କୁ ପ୍ରାର୍ଥନା କଲା, ତ କହିଲା, ଭଗବାନ ମତେ ଗୋଟେ ହାତୀ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ, ମତେ ହାତୀ କରିଦିଅନ୍ତୁ। ହାତୀ ବହୁତ ବଳଶାଳୀ, ତା ସହିତ ସିଂହ ମଧ୍ୟ ଯୁଦ୍ଧ କରିପାରେ ନାହିଁ, ତାର କାୟା ବହୁତ ବଡ଼ କାୟା। ତ ଭଗବାନ ତାକୁ ହାତୀ କରିଦେଲେ। ସେ ହାତୀ ହେଇକରି ଶରୀରଟା ହାତୀ ଅଛି କିନ୍ତୁ ମନ ଭିତରେ ସେଇ ଠେକୁଆ ହିଁ ସେ ଅଛି। ସେ ପାଣି ପିଇବାକୁ ଗଲା, ପାଣି ପିଇବା ବେଳେ କୁମ୍ଭୀର ଆସିଲା। କୁମ୍ଭୀରକୁ ଦେଖିକି ସେ ପୁଣି ଡରିଗଲା। ତ ପାଖରେ ଯେଉଁ ଜୀବମାନେ ଥିଲେ ତାକୁ କହିଲେ, ଆରେ ତୁ ତ ହାତୀ ହେଇକି କୁମ୍ଭୀରକୁ କାହିଁକି ଡରୁଛୁ? ସେ କହିଲା, ନାଇଁ ମତେ ବହୁତ ଭୟ ଲାଗୁଛି। ତ ସେତେବେଳେ ତାକୁ ଅନ୍ୟ ଜୀବମାନେ କହିଲେ, ହଁ, ପାଣି ଭିତରେ କୁମ୍ଭୀରକୁ ହାତୀ ମଧ୍ୟ ପାରିବ ନାହିଁ। ତ ସେ କହିଲା, ତାହେଲେ ମୁଁ ହାତୀ ହେଇକିରି ମୋର କି ଲାଭ ଯଦି ମୁଁ କୁମ୍ଭୀରକୁ ଦେଖି ଡରି ଯାଉଛି? ପୁଣି ସେ ଭଗବାନଙ୍କୁ ସ୍ତୁତି କଲା। ଭଗବାନଙ୍କୁ ସ୍ତୁତି କରିବାରୁ ଭଗବାନ ପୁଣି ତାକୁ ସେ କୁମ୍ଭୀରର କଣ୍ଟା ଏବଂ ମୋଟା ଚମଡ଼ା ଏସବୁ ତାକୁ ଆବରଣ ହିସାବରେ ଦେଇଦେଲେ। ତାପରେ କିଛି ଦୂର ଆଗକୁ ଯାଇଛି, ସେ ଦେଖିଲା ଯେ ଜଙ୍ଗଲର ସମସ୍ତ ପଶୁପକ୍ଷୀ ବହୁତ ଦ୍ରୁତ ଗତିରେ ବିପରୀତ ଦିଗକୁ ପଳାୟନ କରୁଛନ୍ତି। ସେ ଜଣକୁ ପଚାରିଲା, ଭାଇ ତମେ କାହିଁକି ସବୁ ଦୌଡ଼ିକି ପଳଉଛ? ସେମାନେ କହିଲେ, ଜଙ୍ଗଲୀ ମହିଷୀର ବହୁତ ବଡ଼ ଏକ ପଲ ହଜାର ହଜାର ସଂଖ୍ୟାରେ ଦୌଡ଼ି ଦୌଡ଼ି ଆସୁଛନ୍ତି। ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଯିଏ ତାଙ୍କ ଆଗରେ ପଡ଼ିଲା ତାଙ୍କୁ ଏ ପ୍ରକାର ମାଡ଼ିଦେବେ ଯେ ସେ ଆଉ ବଞ୍ଚି ପାରିବ ନାହିଁ। ସିଂହ ବି ଦୌଡ଼ିକି ପଳଉଥିଲା, ହାତୀ ବି ଦୌଡ଼ିକି, ବାଘ ବି ଦୌଡ଼ିକି ପଳଉଥିଲା, ସବୁ ହିଂସ୍ର ଏମିତି ଦୌଡ଼ି ଦୌଡ଼ି ପଳଉଥିଲେ। ତ ସେ ବି ଚୁପଚାପ ଗୋଟେ ପାଖକୁ ଯାଇକି ରହିଗଲା। ସେ ପଳ ପଳେଇଲା ପରେ ପୁଣି ଭାବିଲା ଯେ ମୋର ଏତେ ବିରାଟକାୟ ରୂପ, ଏତେ କଣ୍ଟା, ଏସବୁ ଦେଖିକିରି ମଧ୍ୟ ମୋର ଭୟ ମନ ଭିତରେ କାହିଁକି ଆସୁଛି? ତ କହିବାର ବାହୁଲ୍ୟ ହେଲା, କିନ୍ତୁ ତାର ମନ ଭିତରେ ସେଇ ଠେକୁଆର ଭାବ ଅଛି। ଶରୀର ଯେପରି ହେଇଯାଉ, ଯେତେ ବିଶାଳ ହଉ, ନିଜ ଭିତରେ ଯେତେ ଶକ୍ତି ତାର ଶରୀରରେ ଥାଉ, କିନ୍ତୁ ମନ ଭିତରେ ଯେଉଁ ଭୟର ଭାବ ତାର ଭିତରେ ରହିଲା, ସେଥିପାଇଁ ସେ କୌଣସି କୃତକାର୍ଯ୍ୟ କରିପାରିଲା ନାହିଁ, କୌଣସି ଲକ୍ଷ୍ୟ ପ୍ରାପ୍ତି ପାଇଁ କାମ କରିପାରୁନାହିଁ ଏବଂ କୌଣସି ଭଲ କାମରେ ସମାଜର ସାମ୍ନାକୁ ଆସିକରି ତା ନେତୃତ୍ୱ ନେବାରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେ ପଛରେ ପଡୁଛି। କହିବା ବାହୁଲ୍ୟ ହେଲା, ଆମ ସମାଜରେ ଆମ ଭିତରେ ଯେଉଁ ଶକ୍ତି ଅଛି, ଆମର ଅନ୍ତର୍ନିହିତ ସଂଗଠନର ଶକ୍ତି, ସମାଜର ଶକ୍ତି ଅଛି, ତାକୁ ଆମେ ଚିହ୍ନିବାରେ ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯାଏ ସକ୍ଷମ ହେଇନାହୁଁ। ତ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ଆମକୁ ସମାଜ ଭିତରକୁ ଯାଇକି ସମାଜର ଶକ୍ତିକୁ ଜାଣିବାର ଅଛି, ଚିହ୍ନିବାର ଅଛି ଏବଂ ଆମକୁ ନୂତନ ଭାବରେ ଆତ୍ମପ୍ରକାଶ କରିକରି ଆମର ସାମାଜିକ ଜୀବନକୁ ସରସମୟ, ସମରସତାମୟ, ଭେଦଭାବ ଶୂନ୍ୟ କରି ଗଢ଼ିବାକୁ ଅଛି, ଯାହାକୁ ଆମେ ରାମ ରାଜ୍ୟର ପରିକଳ୍ପନା କରୁଛୁ। ଆଜି ଆମେ ବିବେକାନନ୍ଦଙ୍କୁ ମନେ ପକାଇବା ଅବସରରେ ଏହି ଭାବନା ମନରେ ରଖିକରି ଆଗକୁ ବଢ଼ିବା, ଏତିକି ମୋର କାମନା। ଭାରତ ମାତା କି ଜୟ, ବନ୍ଦେ ଉତ୍କଳ ଜନନୀ।
Thank you, Kambupani Bhai, for a beautiful story wherein you have called upon to the entire society to come out of their fearness and to face the society with that boldness. Now, I shall request our brother Sandeep Panigre Bhai to propose vote of thanks to the dignitaries.
Namaste. Namaste to the host and to the Adhivakta Parisad. I would like to say few things. I would like to thank Prabir Kumar Ray, Shri Sibo Mishra, AOR in Supreme Court, and Justice Aditya Kumar Mohapatra, who had made an elaborate description of the life of Swami Vivekananda and how it is so relevant in today's time. I would also like to thank Shri Kambupani Padhi, who had given nice anecdotes into the life of Swami Vivekananda. I would like to add some few lines, few things. Like Swami Vivekananda was an eloquent speaker. He had brought India into a center stage even while the Britishers were ruling it. His pilgrimage throughout the country for 10 long years, when he was 20, he left the home and went throughout the country for 10 long years. He had a varied experience. And Sri Aurobindo in his speech, in his Uttar Pradesh speech, had actually thanked Swami Vivekananda for introducing him into the transcendental yoga, which he calls the Purna Yoga. At that time, it is to be noted that at that time Swami Vivekananda was not alive. And when Aurobindo was jailed in the Alipur jail, as per him, Vivekananda came to him and had taught him the transcendental yoga. And at last, I would like to tell that even Subhash Chandra Bose was very much inspired from Vivekananda. And as we all know, and even Ambedkar told that Bose was the man, and even Prime Minister Attlee in his conversation with Justice Chakravarti has clarified it, corroborated it. It was Bose because of whom we got the independence. Thank you.
So, before declaring the webinar to be closed, we should thank our Tirtha Bhai, Manas Bhai, and Gyana Bhai, who have arranged all these things behind the scene and provided all technical support and the entire arrangement for making this webinar successful one. Thank you, all of you. Namaskar.
Namaskar.